Everyone thought the Korean Mafia boss inside that sinking car was already dead, except the black waitress who dragged him out with her bare hands. The black sedan hit the water at exactly 11:47 p.m., and Nia Morrison's entire world shifted in the span of a heartbeat. She'd been driving home from her double shift at Rosewood Diner, exhausted and running on fumes, when she saw the car swerve violently on Mulholland Drive. No brake lights, no correction, just a straight trajectory over the guardrail into the reservoir below. Most people would have called 911 and waited. Nia didn't hesitate. She slammed on her brakes, kicked off her shoes, and ran toward the edge. The car was already sinking, nose first, water flooding through the broken windshield. And inside she could see him, a man unconscious, head lolled against the steering wheel, blood streaming down his face. The water was ice cold, stealing her breath as she dove in. January in Los Angeles wasn't supposed to be this brutal, but the reservoir didn't care about supposed to be's. Nia's muscles screamed as she swam toward the sinking vehicle, her nursing school training kicking in even as panic threatened to drown her faster than the water could. The driver's side door was jammed. She yanked once, twice, her lungs burning, and finally it gave way with a groan of twisted metal. The man was huge, easily 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, built like someone who could break her in half without trying. And he was completely dead weight. Nia hooked her arms under his shoulders and pulled. He didn't budge. The car lurched deeper, water now up to his chest. She repositioned, braced her feet against the doorframe, and pulled again with everything she had. This time he moved. Inch by agonizing inch, she dragged him from the wreckage. They broke the surface together, Nia gasping for air, the man's body limp and heavy in her arms. She swam backward toward shore, using a lifeguard technique she'd learned at 16, her arms shaking with exhaustion. 200 pounds of unconscious man felt like 2,000 in the water. When they reached the bank, Nia hauled him onto the muddy grass and immediately checked for a pulse. Weak but there, not breathing. She tilted his head back, checked his airway, and started CPR. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Her arms were jelly, her whole body trembling from cold and adrenaline, but she didn't stop. "Come on," she whispered between compressions. "Come on, don't you dare die on me. Not after I dragged your heavy ass out of that lake." On the 4th round, he coughed. Water spewed from his mouth as he convulsed, turning onto his side as his body expelled the reservoir. Nia supported his head, making sure he didn't choke, relief flooding through her so intensely she almost started crying. That's when she really looked at him. Korean, late 20s, devastatingly handsome, even half drowned and bleeding. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, a face that belonged on magazine covers. And creeping up from his collar, visible even in the moonlight, an intricate tattoo of a dragon, scales rendered in stunning detail, neck ink that screamed danger. His eyes opened, unfocused and disoriented. Dark brown, almost black, they fixed on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. His lips moved, forming words in Korean that she didn't understand. "You're okay," Nia said, hands still supporting his head. "You were in an accident. Your car went into the water. Just stay still. Help is coming." She'd called 911 before diving in, tossed her phone on the hood of her car, screamed the location, then ran. Now she could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. The man's hand suddenly gripped her wrist, fingers cold but strong, surprisingly strong for someone who'd just been dying. "You saved me," he said in English, accent thick but words clear. His grip tightened. "Why?" "Because you were drowning," Nia said, like it was obvious, like she hadn't just risked her own life for a complete stranger. "What else was I supposed to do?" Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or disbelief. Like the concept of someone helping without ulterior motive was foreign to him. He opened his mouth to respond, but then the ambulance arrived and paramedics were swarming them both, wrapping them in thermal blankets, asking rapid-fire questions. They separated them. Nia watched as they loaded the man onto a stretcher, his eyes tracking her the entire time. Even as they secured him, even as they started an IV, his gaze never left her face, like he was memorizing her features, like he was afraid she'd disappear. "Ma'am, we need to check you out too," a paramedic said, guiding Nia toward the second ambulance. "I'm fine," she protested, but her teeth were chattering so hard she could barely speak. "You're hypothermic and in shock. Hospital now." As they drove away, Nia craned her neck to see the other ambulance following behind them. The man with the dragon tattoo and the impossible question, "Why would you save me?" She didn't know his name, didn't know anything about him except that he drove expensive cars and had the kind of tattoo that usually meant trouble. But something in those dark eyes had grabbed hold of her and refused to let go. At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, they treated Nia for mild hypothermia and released her 3 hours later with instructions to rest and stay warm. She was sitting in the waiting room, waiting for her roommate Keisha to pick her up, when a nurse approached. "Excuse me, are you Nia Morrison, the woman from the reservoir?" "Yeah, that's me." "The man you saved is asking for you. He's insistent. Won't let the doctors finish examining him until he speaks with you." The nurse looked both impressed and exasperated. "He's in room 437 if you want to see him." Nia should have said no, should have gone home, taken a hot shower, and forgotten this entire night. Instead, she found herself walking toward the elevators, curiosity overwhelming common sense. Room 437 was a private suite, the kind that cost thousands per night. Through the window, Nia could see the man sitting up in bed, looking substantially better than he had an hour ago. The blood had been cleaned from his face, revealing a gash across his temple that had been butterfly bandaged. His wet clothes had been replaced with a hospital gown that somehow looked expensive on him. Nia knocked softly and entered. Up close, in proper lighting, the man was even more striking. The dragon tattoo extended further than she'd realized, wrapping around his neck and disappearing beneath the gown. His hair, now dry, fell across his forehead in styled waves. And those eyes, they tracked her movement like a predator watching prey. "You came," he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. "The nurse said you were being difficult." Nia stayed near the door, maintaining distance. "I figured I'd better check in before you gave the staff a heart attack. I needed to thank you properly, to know your name." He gestured to the chair beside his bed. "Please, sit." It was phrased as a request, but something in his tone suggested he wasn't used to being refused. Nia sat carefully, perching on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt if necessary. "Nia Morrison," she said. "And you are?" "Lee Jun-young." He said it like she should recognize the name. When her expression remained blank, something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "You really don't know who I am." "Should I?" "Most people in LA's Korean community would. Most people in certain business circles." He studied her carefully. "But you're neither, are you? You're just a woman who happened to be driving by at the right moment." "I'm a waitress at Rosewood Diner on Crenshaw," Nia said, "and a nursing student at LACC. I don't exactly run in high-powered business circles." "A nursing student?" Jun-young's expression shifted, something almost tender breaking through his controlled facade. "That explains the perfect CPR technique. You saved my life with professional precision." "I saved your life because you were dying," Nia corrected. "The technique just meant you didn't die from my attempt to save you. There's a difference." He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. "You're honest, refreshingly so." "And you're being evasive," Nia countered. "What kind of business circles are we talking about? Because that tattoo in this private suite and the way you said your name like it should mean something, it's all adding up to something I probably don't want to be involved in." Jun-young was quiet for a long moment, fingers absently tracing the edge of his hospital blanket. When he spoke, his voice was different, harder, colder. "My family runs certain operations in Los Angeles. Import-export, entertainment venues, protection services, what your country calls organized crime." Nia's blood turned to ice. "You're a gangster." "I prefer businessman with complicated holdings. But yes, in essence, I run what you would call the Korean Mafia in Southern California." He met her eyes directly, unflinching. "And tonight's accident wasn't an accident. Someone cut my brake lines. Someone wanted me dead." Every instinct screamed at Nia to run, to get as far from this man in his dangerous world as possible. But she found herself asking instead, "Did you find out who?" "Not yet, but I will." The promise in his voice was dark, absolute. "And when I do, they'll wish they'd finished the job." "That's..." Nia struggled for words. "You can't just threaten people like that." "I can and I will, because in my world, showing weakness gets you killed. Letting attempts on your life go unanswered invites more attempts." He leaned forward slightly, wincing at the movement. "But that's not why I asked you here. I need to repay you for saving my life." "You don't owe me anything." "I owe you everything." Young's intensity was almost overwhelming. In my culture, in my family's tradition, a life debt is sacred. You pulled me from death. That binds us. We're not bound, Nia said firmly, standing up. I did what any decent person would do. You don't owe me. We're square. I'm going to go home, forget this night happened, and we're never going to see each other again. You work at Rosewood Diner on Crenshaw, Young said quietly. What are your hours? Warning bells clanged in Nia's head. Why? Because I'll be coming by. To thank you properly. To ensure you're protected from any blowback from tonight. Protected? I'm a waitress. Nobody's coming after me. You were seen pulling me from that car. My enemies will investigate every aspect of tonight, including you. His expression was grave. Whether you want to be involved or not, you already are. The moment you dove into that water, you became part of my world. That's not fair, Nia whispered. No, it's not. For the first time, something that might have been regret crossed his face. But it's the truth, and I'd rather you hear it from me than discover it when someone starts following you home. Nia's phone buzzed. Keisha, waiting downstairs. She looked at Young, this beautiful, dangerous man who just upended her entire life, and felt anger and fear and something else she refused to name. Stay away from my diner, she said. Stay away from me. I don't want any part of your world. I wish I could promise you that, Young said softly, but I can't, because they'll come whether I'm there or not. At least with me, you'll have protection. Nia turned and walked out, refusing to look back, even though she could feel his eyes on her like a physical touch. In the elevator, her hands shook, not from cold this time, but from the realization that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. 3 days passed. 3 days of Nia jumping at shadows, watching for suspicious cars, eyeing every customer at the diner with suspicion. 3 days of telling herself she was being paranoid, that Young was exaggerating the danger. On the 4th day, he walked into Rosewood Diner at exactly 2 p.m. during the post-lunch lull when the restaurant was nearly empty. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Nia's car, dark sunglasses hiding his eyes, and moved with the careful deliberation of someone still recovering from injury. Nia was wiping down the counter when she saw him. Her heart did a traitorous flip that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with how unfairly attractive he was. She forced herself to stay calm, professional. We're not serving whatever you're looking for, she said as he approached the counter. Coffee, Young said, removing his sunglasses. The bruising around his temple had faded to yellow-green, but the cut was still visible. Black, and whatever pie you recommend. I recommend you leave. I will, after coffee and pie. He sat on a stool, wincing slightly. Please, Nia, I've been in the hospital for 3 days. All I want is decent coffee and 5 minutes of your time. Something in his voice, a weariness that went beyond physical injury, made Nia relent. She poured coffee, cut a generous slice of sweet potato pie, and slid both across the counter. 5 minutes, she said. Then you're gone. Young took a sip of coffee and closed his eyes like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Perfect, thank you. What do you want? To make sure you're safe, have you noticed anyone following you? Strange cars? Unfamiliar faces? No, Nia admitted. Everything's been normal. Good. I have people watching your building and the diner. Discreetly. They'll make sure no one bothers you. You put surveillance on me? Nia's voice rose. Without asking? Would you have said yes if I'd asked? No. Exactly why I didn't ask. He took a bite of pie, nodding appreciatively. This is excellent. You make this? Don't change the subject. You can't just... The diner door chimed. 3 men walked in, Korean, mid-30s, wearing leather jackets despite the warm January afternoon. They moved with the same predatory grace as Young, eyes scanning the room before settling on him. Nia felt the temperature in the room drop. Young set down his fork carefully, his entire demeanor shifting. The relaxed man enjoying pie disappeared, replaced by someone cold and dangerous. Gentlemen, he said in Korean. Nia didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. A warning. The lead man responded, also in Korean, his voice mocking. The other two spread out, flanking Young's position at the counter. Nia's hand moved to the phone beneath the register, ready to call 911. Don't, Young said quietly in English, not looking at her. Stay behind the counter. Whatever happens, don't move. What's happening? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. They're here to finish what the car accident started. His hand moved inside his jacket and Nia saw the flash of metal, a gun holstered beneath his arm. And they picked the wrong place to try. The lead man said something else in Korean, gesturing toward Nia. Jun-young's expression turned murderous. He stood slowly, deliberately, positioning himself between Nia and the three men. In English, he said coldly, so she understands why you're about to die. The man smiled, all teeth and malice. We said, pretty girl, too bad she saved you. Now we have to kill her too. Can't leave witnesses. Everything happened at once. The lead man reached for his weapon. Jun-young moved faster than someone recovering from injuries should be able to, drawing his gun in one fluid motion. Nia screamed as shots exploded through the diner, the sound deafening in the small space. One of the men went down immediately, Jun-young's bullet finding his shoulder. The other two dove for cover behind tables. Jun-young flipped the counter stool, using it as minimal protection while returning fire. Glass shattered, wood splintered, and Nia found herself on the floor behind the counter, hands over her ears, watching her workplace become a war zone. Stay down, Jun-young shouted, firing 3 rapid shots that forced one attacker back toward the door. But the lead man had circled around, coming at them from the kitchen side. Nia saw him first, saw the gun rising, saw Jun-young's back exposed and vulnerable. She didn't think. Just grabbed the coffee pot, still hot from the burner, and threw it with every ounce of strength she had. It caught the man in the face, scalding liquid splashing across his eyes. He screamed, gun discharging wildly as he clutched at his face. Jun-young spun, fired twice, and the man went down. The last attacker, seeing his companions fallen, made a run for the door. Jun-young let him go, breathing hard, gun still raised until the door slammed shut and tires squealed outside. Silence, broken only by the groaning of the wounded men and Nia's ragged breathing. Jun-young turned to her, face pale beneath his tan, a new wound seeping blood through his shirt at his side. Are you hurt? His voice was urgent, hands already reaching for her, even as he swayed slightly. No, but you are. Nia's training kicked in again, pushing past shock. She moved around the counter, pressing a clean dish towel to his side. Sit, now. The men are not my priority, you are. She guided him to a booth, her hands already assessing the damage. The bullet had grazed his side, not deep but bleeding steadily. Hold this. Press hard. Jun-young obeyed, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Nia grabbed her phone, but before she could dial 911, he caught her wrist. Not the police. My people are already coming. As if on cue, 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Men in dark suits poured out, securing the scene with military precision. But yes, I need medical attention. A man in his 50s, distinguished and cold-eyed, entered the diner and took in the scene with a single sweep. He barked orders in Korean, and immediately 2 men began moving the wounded attackers out, while others started cleaning up evidence. Jun-young Nim, the older man said, his accent thick. We need to move you. This location is compromised. Not without her. Jun-young nodded toward Nia. She's coming with us. The hell I am, Nia protested. They saw you. They know you helped me. Jun-young gripped her arm, his fingers gentle despite the urgency in his voice. They'll come back for you. Tonight, tomorrow, next week. You're not safe here anymore. My life was perfectly safe until you walked into it. I know, and I'm sorry, but Nia, please. His voice cracked slightly. I can't protect you if you're not with me. And I need to protect you. Because you saved my life twice now. And because... He stopped, jaw clenching. Because what? Because in 4 days, you've become the most important thing in my world, and I don't know what to do with that information. The confession hung in the air between them. Nia stared at this man, this beautiful, dangerous, impossible man, and felt something inside her chest crack open, despite every wall she tried to build. Boss, the older man said urgently, we need to leave. Now. Nia looked at the diner, her workplace shot to pieces, looked at the blood on the floor, the shattered windows, the evidence being systematically erased, looked at Jun-young, who was bleeding because he'd put himself between her and bullets. One day, she said finally, I'll go with you for 1 day, let you make sure I'm safe, then I'm coming back to my life. Relief flooded Jun-young's features. 1 day, I promise. It was a lie, and they both knew it, because the moment Nia climbed into that black SUV, Surrounded by armed men speaking rapid Korean, her old life ended. There was no going back to normal after this. The SUV drove for 30 minutes, winding through LA's streets with practiced ease, before pulling up to a gated estate in the Hollywood Hills. The property was massive, modern architecture, all glass and clean lines, surrounded by high walls and security cameras that tracked their approach. "Welcome to my home," Junyoung said as they pulled through the gates. He'd been treated in the car by a woman Nia assumed was a private doctor, the wound cleaned and bandaged with professional efficiency. Now he looked exhausted, pain etched in the lines around his eyes. Inside, the house was beautiful in a cold, untouched way. Expensive furniture that looked like no one ever sat on it. Art on the walls that probably cost more than Nia's yearly tuition. Everything pristine and perfect and utterly lifeless. "You live here alone?" Nia asked, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "Yes, my father built this place. When he died 3 years ago, I inherited it along with everything else." Junyoung moved toward a bar in the corner, pouring himself whiskey with shaking hands. "I've never liked it. Too big, too empty, but it's secure, and right now, that's what matters." Nia watched him drink, saw the way his shoulders hunched slightly, the careful way he held his injured side. "You should rest. That wound will heal. I've survived worse." He poured a second glass, offering it to her. "You, however, just watch people try to kill you. Most civilians would be catatonic right now." "I'm not most civilians." Nia took the glass but didn't drink. "I grew up in Watts. I've heard gunshots before, seen violence. This was more intense, but not as foreign as you might think. Still, you threw boiling coffee at an armed man to save my life." Something like wonder colored his voice. "For the second time in a week, you risked yourself for me. Why?" "Because he was going to shoot you in the back. Because you'd stepped in front of me to protect me. Because—" Nia struggled to articulate feelings she didn't fully understand. "Because the thought of you dying made me want to scream." Junyoung set down his glass and moved toward her, each step deliberate. When he was close enough that she could feel his warmth, smell his cologne mixed with antiseptic and gunpowder, he stopped. "I'm going to kiss you," he said quietly, "unless you tell me not to." Nia's heart hammered against her ribs. Every rational thought screamed that this was a terrible idea. He was a criminal. She was a nursing student trying to build a normal life. They came from completely different worlds. This could only end badly. "Don't," she whispered. Junyoung froze, pain flashing across his features. He stepped back immediately, putting distance between them. "I apologize. That was inappropriate." "Don't," Nia repeated, moving forward to close the distance he'd created. "Don't apologize. Don't think. Don't give me time to be smart about this." She reached up, cupping his face in her hands. "Just kiss me before I change my mind." He kissed her like a drowning man finding air. His hands framed her face with devastating gentleness, lips moving against hers with a hunger that made her knees weak. Nia kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear and adrenaline and impossible attraction she'd been fighting for days. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Junyoung pressed his forehead to hers. "This is a terrible idea. I'm going to get you killed. Probably. You should run, far and fast." "I know." Nia's fingers traced the edge of the dragon tattoo visible above his collar. "But I'm not going to." "Why not?" "Because I pulled you out of that water and breathed life back into your lungs. And somewhere in that process, you became mine to protect. Even from yourself." Junyoung's laugh was rough, almost broken. "I'm supposed to be protecting you. Then I guess we'll protect each other." She kissed him again, softer this time. "Now show me to a guest room before I do something really stupid like fall in love with you." "Too late," Junyoung murmured against her lips. "I fell in love with you the moment you told that nurse my CPR technique was professional. You were soaking wet, probably in shock, and still correcting my terminology. That's not love. That's attraction mixed with gratitude. Then what is it when I can't stop thinking about you? When every decision I make is filtered through, how will this affect Nia? When the thought of you in danger makes me want to burn the world down." Nia didn't have an answer, just pulled him closer, careful of his injury, and let herself believe, just for a moment, that this could somehow work. The guest room was beautiful. King bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, ensuite bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, closet already stocked with clothes in her size. How did you? Nia gestured to the closet. I had someone buy them while we were driving here. Educated guess on sizes. Jun Young leaned against the doorframe, looking simultaneously exhausted and alert. There's a security detail outside. If you need anything, just ask. They're here to protect you, not imprison you. What's the difference? You can leave whenever you want. I won't stop you. His expression was carefully neutral. But I'm asking you to stay, at least until we neutralize the immediate threat. How long will that take? Days, maybe a week. He pushed off the doorframe, wincing. The men who attacked us today work for the Serpent Syndicate. They've been trying to move into our territory for months. Today was their declaration of war. And you're going to fight them. I'm going to destroy them. There was no doubt in his voice, just cold certainty. They came into a civilian business, threatened an innocent woman, broke every code we operate by. They forfeited any protection those codes might have offered. You're going to kill people. Jun Young met her eyes directly. Yes. Does that change how you see me? Nia wanted to say yes, wanted to be horrified, but she'd seen those men, heard them casually discuss killing her, felt the cold certainty that they would have done it without hesitation. I don't know. Ask me again when this is over. Fair enough. He moved to leave, then paused. Nia, thank you for staying, for not running, for being you. When he left, Nia collapsed onto the bed, mind racing. She should call Keisha, should check on her shifts at the diner, should do 100 normal things. Instead, she found herself wondering what Jun Young was doing, if his wound was hurting, if he was planning violence in some other part of this massive house. She showered, letting hot water wash away the smell of gunpowder and fear. Put on the silk pajamas someone had thoughtfully included in the closet, tried to sleep and failed completely. At 2 a.m., she gave up and went exploring. The house was quiet but not empty. She could hear voices from somewhere below, men speaking in Korean, tense and urgent. Following the sound, Nia found herself looking down into a large room that appeared to be some kind of operations center. Jun Young stood at the head of a conference table, shirt changed but still showing signs of injury, pointing at maps spread across the surface. Around him, a dozen men listened with absolute attention. The older man from the diner was there, along with others Nia didn't recognize. She couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. This was planning, strategy, war being waged with words before it would be waged with bullets. And at the center of it all was Jun Young, commanding absolute loyalty with nothing but his presence. You should be sleeping. Nia jumped, spinning to find a woman standing behind her. Korean, mid-30s, beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way. She wore tactical gear like it was a second skin, and her eyes assessed Nia with professional thoroughness. I couldn't sleep. Who are you? Yuki Tanaka, head of security. The woman's English was perfect, unaccented. I'm the one who bought your clothes. You're a size 6, right? I guessed. You guessed correctly. Nia gestured to the room below. What's happening? War Council, they're planning the response to today's attack. Yuki studied Nia with interest. You're the one who saved his life. Twice now. I was in the right place at the right time. You threw boiling coffee at an armed assassin. That's not luck. That's courage. Yuki's expression softened slightly. He talks about you constantly. It's annoying. Despite everything, Nia smiled. Sorry. Don't be. I've worked for Jun Young for 5 years. I've never seen him like this. Distracted? Concerned about something beyond business? Yuki's voice lowered. He cares about you, deeply. In our world, that's both a strength and a catastrophic weakness. I don't want to be his weakness. Then you'll need to become his strength. Yuki nodded toward the room below. Come, you should understand what you've gotten yourself into. They descended stairs Nia hadn't noticed, emerging in the operations room. Conversation stopped instantly as every eye turned to Nia. Jun Young's expression transformed from cold calculation to something softer, warmer. Nia, you should be resting. Everyone keeps telling me that. I'm starting to think you're all secretly doctors. She moved to the table, looking at the maps. What is all this? Territory maps, known Serpent Syndicate locations, supply routes. Jun Young hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Information you probably shouldn't have access to. But I already do, don't I? The moment they saw my face, I became part of this. Nia met his eyes. So stop protecting me from information and start trusting me with it. Silence. Then the older man spoke in Korean, his tone questioning. Jun Young responded sharply, clearly shutting down whatever objection was being raised. My second in command, Park Sung-ho, thinks bringing you into this discussion is dangerous, Jun Young translated. I told him I don't care what he thinks. Nia, this is my inner circle. Everyone in this room has sworn blood oaths to protect our organization. What's discussed here never leaves this room. I understand. Do you? Because if you betray us, if you go to the police or talk to the wrong people, people will die. Good people who've done nothing wrong except be loyal to me. The threat was implicit but clear. Nia should have been terrified. Instead, she felt oddly calm. I won't betray you. You have my word. Why should we trust the word of someone we just met? Sung-ho asked in heavily accented English. Because she's pulled me from death twice without asking for anything in return, Jun Young answered before Nia could. Because she's proven herself more loyal in 4 days than some people in this room have in years. His gaze swept the table, and several men shifted uncomfortably. Her word is good enough for me. If it's not good enough for you, leave. No one left. Jun Young nodded once, then continued in English, presumably for Nia's benefit. The Serpent Syndicate has been testing our borders for 6 months. Small provocations, territory disputes, nothing worth going to war over, until they tried to kill me. Why? Nia asked. What changed? We're transitioning to legitimate business, shutting down the drug operations, the illegal gambling, the protection rackets, making everything legal and above board. Jun Young's finger traced a line on the map. The syndicate wants those operations. They see our transition as weakness, as an opportunity to seize what we're abandoning. But you're not weak, Nia said quietly. No, we're strategic. There's more money in legal operations with less risk. But the syndicate doesn't see it that way. They see tradition, territory, old school thinking. He looked up at her. Today's attack wasn't just about killing me. It was about sending a message. Stay in your lane or die. What message are you sending back? Jun Young's smile was cold, predatory. That I'm not my father, that I don't negotiate with terrorists, that anyone who threatens what's mine forfeits their life. Yuki cleared her throat. We've located 3 of their primary operations. Warehouse in San Pedro, club in Koreatown, private residence in Beverly Hills. We hit all 3 simultaneously. They'll be crippled. Civilian casualties? Jun Young asked. The warehouse and residence can be hit clean. The club will be trickier. It's open to the public. Yuki pulled up photos on a tablet. We'd need to time it for closing, minimize bystander risk. Then we wait until closing. I won't have innocent blood on my hands. Jun Young's eyes found Nia's. Some lines I won't cross. What about not so innocent blood? Nia heard herself ask. That, I'll spill without hesitation. He said it simply, like discussing the weather. The syndicate has 37 active members in Los Angeles. After tomorrow night, they'll have significantly fewer. You're talking about mass murder. I'm talking about war. They started it when they cut my brake lines. I'm finishing it. Nia looked around the table at the assembled men. Hardened criminals, every one of them. Murderers, probably. Definitely dangerous. And yet they looked at Jun Young with something like reverence, like he was worth dying for. I want to come with you, she said. The room exploded with protests. Sung-ho shouted in Korean. Yuki shook her head. Other men gestured wildly. Only Jun Young remained still, eyes locked on Nia's face. Absolutely not, he said finally. You said I'm part of this now, that they'll come after me regardless. So let me see what you do. Let me understand who you really are. You don't want to see that part of me. Yes, I do. Because if we're doing this, if I'm staying in your world, I need to know what that world looks like. All of it, not just the penthouse and expensive suits. Jun Young was quiet for a long moment. Then, you stay in the vehicle. You don't get out. You don't participate. You're an observer only. Agreed. Sung-ho started to protest again, but Jun Young cut him off with a sharp gesture. It's decided. Nia comes. Yuki, you're on her detail. She doesn't get a scratch. Understood? Understood, Yuki said, though her expression suggested she thought they were all insane. The next day passed intense preparation. Nia watched from a distance as Jun Young's organization mobilized for war. Weapons were cleaned and loaded, Strategies were refined. Men came and went with the efficiency of a military operation. Jun Young himself was a study in controlled intensity. He moved through the house like a ghost, checking on preparations, making calls in rapid Korean, every movement precise and purposeful. But whenever he passed Nia, his hand would find hers for a moment, a brief touch, a reminder that she was his anchor. "You can still back out," he told her that evening as she dressed in the dark clothes Yuki had provided. "No one would think less of you." "I would." Nia pulled on the tactical vest Yuki had insisted she wear. "I need to see this, Jun Young. Need to understand what loving you means." "Loving me?" He went very still. "I'm not stupid. I know what this feeling is." She turned to face him. "I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me. But I'd rather be terrified and informed than terrified and ignorant." Jun Young crossed to her, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you've got me anyway." She rose on her toes, kissing him softly. "Come back to me tonight. Whoever you have to become out there, remember to come back to me." "Always," he promised. The convoy left at 11 p.m., 6 black SUVs moving through LA's streets like a funeral procession. Nia sat in the third vehicle with Yuki and 2 other guards, watching the city pass by through bulletproof windows. "First time?" Yuki asked quietly. "First time for what? Witnessing organized crime violence?" "Yeah, first time." "You're handling it better than most. Usually civilians throw up or pass out around now." "I'm not most civilians." Nia's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "And I promised myself I wouldn't look away." They arrived at the warehouse in San Pedro at 11:47 p.m. Nia watched as Jun Young's men deployed with military precision, surrounding the building, cutting off exits. Jun Young himself moved to the front, Sung Ho at his side, looking every inch the crime lord he was. "They'll offer terms first," Yuki narrated quietly. "Give them a chance to surrender. Most won't take it." She was right. Nia couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw the moment negotiation failed, saw guns drawn on both sides, saw Jun Young step back, giving a signal. The warehouse erupted in gunfire. Even through the SUV's armored walls, Nia could hear it, deafening, relentless. She forced herself to watch, to not look away from the violence Jun Young had promised. It was over in 3 minutes. When Jun Young emerged, his suit was splattered with blood that probably wasn't his. He moved to their SUV, opening the door, eyes finding Nia's. "Still want to see more?" he asked, voice flat. "Yes." Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe, or sorrow. "Then let's go." The club in Koreatown was different. They waited until closing, watched the last civilians leave, then moved in. This time Nia could see more clearly through the tinted windows. Could see Jun Young confronting a man in an expensive suit, their argument visible even if the words weren't audible. The suited man spat at Jun Young's feet. Wrong move. Jun Young moved so fast Nia almost missed it. One moment standing still, the next his fist connecting with the man's jaw with brutal efficiency. The man dropped like a puppet with cut strings. What followed was systematic destruction. Jun Young's men tore through the club, smashing bottles, destroying furniture, sending a message written in broken glass and splintered wood. And when they found the syndicate members hiding in the back, Jun Young didn't hesitate. Nia watched him put a gun to a man's head, watched him pull the trigger without flinching, watched the body drop and Jun Young step over it like it was nothing. She should have been horrified, should have demanded they take her home. Instead, she found herself understanding. This was survival. This was the price of safety in a world where weakness meant death. The final location, the Beverly Hills residence, was the worst. A mansion almost as large as Jun Young's, security systems that took 30 minutes to bypass, and inside the syndicate's leader, a man named Kwon, mid-50s, who looked more like a businessman than a criminal. Jun Young had him brought outside, forced to his knees on the manicured lawn. Nia watched from the SUV as Jun Young stood over the man, gun in hand, face utterly emotionless. "This is for cutting my brakes," she heard him say, voice carrying in the quiet night. "For threatening my woman, for forgetting that mercy has limits." The gunshot echoed across the lawn. Kwon's body crumpled, and Jun Young stood there for a moment, looking at what he'd done, before turning back to the convoy. When he reached their SUV, Nia opened the door. Without a word, she stepped out, walked to him, and pulled him into her arms. He was shaking, she realized. This man who'd just executed someone was trembling like a leaf. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her hair. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Don't be sorry for being who you are." Nia held him tighter. "You did what you had to do to protect your people. To protect me. I'm a monster. You're a man in an impossible situation, making impossible choices. There's a difference." He pulled back, looking at her with eyes full of wonder and pain. "How can you still look at me like that? After seeing what I did?" "Because I also saw you give them chances to surrender. Saw you prioritize civilian safety. Saw you shake after killing someone, which means you still have a conscience." Nia cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "You're not a monster, Jun Young. You're a man trying to protect what's his in the only way this world allows." "I love you," he said suddenly, desperately. "I know it's too soon. I know it's insane. But I love you, Nia Morrison. And I need you to know that before you decide this is too much." "I love you too," Nia heard herself say. "God help me, I love you too. And I'm staying." They kissed there on the lawn, surrounded by violence and death, and somehow it felt like the most honest moment of Nia's life. The war ended that night. By morning, the Serpent Syndicate had retreated from Los Angeles entirely, their leadership decimated, their operations destroyed. Jun Young's organization stood victorious but not unmarked. 3 men had died in the warehouse firefight, and several others nursed injuries. Nia spent the next week at Jun Young's house, watching him navigate the aftermath. Funerals to attend, families to compensate, territory to redistribute. The business of crime never stopped, even after the violence ended. But in the quiet moments late at night when it was just the two of them, Jun Young was different, softer, more open. He told her about his father's reign, how it had been built on fear and violence, about his own plans to transform the organization into something legitimate, something his children wouldn't have to escape from. "You want children?" Nia asked one night, curled against his chest. "I want everything," Jun Young admitted. "Wife, family, normal life. I want to be someone besides my father's son, the heir to a criminal empire." "What's stopping you?" "Fear, mostly. That I'll fail. That I'll drag someone into my mess and destroy them." His arms tightened around her. "That I'll lose you because you'll realize you deserve better." "I pulled you out of a sinking car," Nia reminded him. "Dragged your stubborn, unconscious ass through freezing water and brought you back to life. Do you really think I'm going to give up on you now?" "When you put it that way, I saved your life, Jun Young. That makes you mine, and I take care of what's mine." He rolled over, pinning her beneath him gently, eyes blazing with intensity. "Marry me," Nia blinked. "What?" "Marry me. Be my wife. Help me build something better than what my father left. Have babies with dragon tattoos and your beautiful eyes. Grow old with me. Say yes." "That's the second most insane proposal I've ever heard. What was the first?" "This is also the first. There's only one proposal." Nia laughed, then sobered, looking into his eyes. "Jun Young, we've known each other 2 weeks. I knew I loved you after 2 days. The rest has just been confirmation. Your life is dangerous. Your world is violent. I'd be a target forever. You're already a target. Might as well get the ring and legal protections that come with being my wife." "That's the worst sales pitch for marriage I've ever heard." "Is it working?" Nia looked at him, this beautiful, broken, dangerous man who'd somehow become her entire world in the span of 2 weeks. Thought about the alternative, going back to her studio apartment, her waitressing job, her safe, boring life, and realized that safe and boring had died the moment she dove into that reservoir. "Yes," she whispered. "You absolute maniac. Yes, I'll marry you." Jun Young kissed her with a desperation that bordered on violence, and Nia kissed him back with equal intensity. They made love that night with the urgency of people who'd seen death up close and chosen life anyway. The engagement ring appeared the next morning, a stunning diamond set in platinum, flanked by smaller stones in a design that managed to be both delicate and strong, exactly like Nia herself. "When did you even have time to buy this?" she asked, staring at the ring on her finger. "I didn't. It was my mother's. She died when I was young, but my father kept all her jewelry." Jun Young took her hand, thumb brushing over the ring. "She would have liked you, would have appreciated your strength. I wish I could have met her." "So do I. She was the only person who could make my father human. When she died, he became harder, colder. I don't want to be like that." "You won't be, because you have me." Nia pulled him close. and I won't let you disappear into that darkness. They planned a small wedding, just close friends and family, people who understood their world and accepted it. Keisha served as maid of honor, still shocked but supportive. Girl, you really know how to pick them, she'd said, eyeing June Young's security detail. Most women get guys with commitment issues. You got one with an entire criminal organization. The ceremony was held at June Young's house, officiated by a judge who owed him favors and asked no questions. Nia wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated. June Young wore a black suit that accentuated his dragon tattoo, visible at his collar like a promise of the danger he carried. When they exchanged vows, June Young's voice cracked. I promise to spend every day earning the miracle of your love, to protect you with everything I have, to build a life worthy of your sacrifice. You saved me from drowning, Nia. Now I promise to never let you sink. Nia's vows were simpler. I pulled you from death because I couldn't bear to let you go. I'm marrying you for the same reason. You're mine, Lee June Young, and I take care of what's mine. They kissed as husband and wife, and Nia thought about how strange life was. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a waitress with student loans and no prospects. Now she was married to one of the most powerful men in LA's underworld, with a rock on her finger and a future she couldn't have imagined. 6 months later, Nia walked across the stage at LA Community College to receive her nursing degree. In the audience, June Young sat in the front row, flanked by his security team, looking more proud than she'd ever seen him. Mrs. Lee, her professor said, handing her the diploma. Congratulations, top of your class. Mrs. Lee. The name still felt foreign, exciting, dangerous. Nia looked out at her husband, saw him mouth, I love you, and felt her heart swell. After the ceremony, June Young swept her into his arms, spinning her around despite the protests of his security team about maintaining proper awareness of surroundings. I'm so proud of you, he said, setting her down but keeping her close. My brilliant, beautiful wife. Our wife, Yuki corrected, appearing beside them with a bouquet of flowers. She's technically all of ours now, comes with the territory of marrying the boss. Nia had learned that June Young's organization was more family than business. They'd welcomed her with open arms, teaching her Korean, including her in decisions, treating her like the first lady of their small criminal kingdom. Where to now? June Young asked as they walked to the car. The diner, Nia said. I promised Mr. Washington I'd stop by after graduation. The Rosewood Diner had been rebuilt after the shooting, stronger and better than before. June Young had bought the property and renovated it, installing security that could rival a bank's. Mr. Washington, the owner, had been suspicious at first but eventually accepted the help. Now, 6 months later, the diner was thriving, and in the corner booth where Nia used to hide during slow periods, a small plaque read, Where Nia Morrison saved a life and changed everything. Still can't believe he put that up, Nia muttered, sliding into the booth. I can, June Young said, sitting across from her. You're a hero. You should be celebrated. I'm not a hero. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what very few people would do. You risked everything for a stranger. His hand found hers across the table. And you continue to risk everything by staying with me. It's not a risk if I know you're worth it. Mr. Washington appeared with coffee and pie, refusing to let them pay despite June Young's protests. Your money's no good here, the old man said firmly. Not after what you did for this place. For Nia. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee and eating pie, watching the diner fill with the dinner crowd. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that the couple in the corner booth controlled half of LA's underworld. I have something to tell you, Nia said finally. June Young's expression immediately shifted to concern. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Actually, everything's right. I'm pregnant. He froze, coffee cup halfway to his lips. You're... What? Pregnant. About 8 weeks. I found out yesterday but wanted to wait until after graduation to tell you. Nia watched his face carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. I know we said we'd wait, but... June Young was around the table in an instant, pulling her into his arms, his whole body shaking. We're having a baby. We're having a baby, Nia confirmed. He kissed her then. Right there in the middle of the diner, not caring who watched. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. I'm going to be a father. A great father, Nia corrected. Nothing like yours. You're going to teach our kid about honor and strength and how to throw a proper punch. And you'll teach them about courage and compassion and how to save lives. His hand moved to her still flat stomach. They're going to be amazing. They'd better be. With your stubborn genes and my tendency to jump into freezing water without thinking, this kid's going to be a handful. They laughed together, and Nia thought about the trajectory of her life. From drowning man to criminal empire to unexpected pregnancy, nothing had gone according to plan, but somehow it had all led her exactly where she needed to be. Epilogue: 3 years later, Nia stood in the backyard of their new house. Not the sterile mansion in the hills, but a real home in Pasadena with a yard for their daughter to play in. Ji-young Lee was 2 years old with her father's dark eyes and her mother's bright smile, currently covered in mud from helping the gardener plant flowers. "Mama!" she called, holding up a worm triumphantly. "Look! That's wonderful, baby, but maybe don't eat it." Ji-young looked disappointed but dropped the worm back into the dirt. Nia shook her head, smiling. Their daughter had inherited Jun-young's intensity and Nia's complete lack of fear, a combination that kept them constantly on their toes. Jun-young emerged from the house, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. The dragon tattoo was still visible at his collar, but these days it was usually covered by business casual attire. He'd made good on his promise to go legitimate, transforming his organization into a network of legal businesses that employed hundreds. There were still whispers, of course, still people who remembered his father's reign, who looked at him with fear or suspicion. But more and more he was seen as a businessman, a philanthropist, a devoted husband and father. "Keisha just called," he said, scooping up Ji-young and somehow avoiding most of the mud. "She and Marcus are coming for dinner. Marcus being her husband, not my ex-boyfriend Marcus. Obviously, your ex-boyfriend Marcus is still probably crying somewhere about letting you go." Nia laughed. She'd run into Devon, her ex from the reservoir night, though she barely thought of him anymore, at a grocery store 6 months ago. He'd stared at her like he'd seen a ghost, taking in her wedding ring, her designer clothes, the confidence she wore like armor now. "You're married," he'd said, voice faint. 3 years now," Nia had replied cheerfully, "and pregnant with number 2. Life's good." He'd walked away without another word, and Nia had felt nothing but relief. That version of herself, the one who'd settled for a man who left her at a restaurant, felt like a stranger now. "What are you thinking about?" Jun-young asked now, wrapping his free arm around her waist. "How I almost let you drown because I was tired and wanted to go home. But you didn't. You dove in instead. Best decision I ever made." Nia leaned into him, watching their daughter play. "Even when it was terrifying, even when it didn't make sense, I chose to save you, and you chose to love me, and somehow we built this. This was everything. A family, a home, a life that honored both their worlds. Her nursing career at a community clinic Jun-young had funded, his legitimate business empire, their daughter who would grow up knowing both her Korean heritage and her black roots. "I have something for you," Jun-young said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a necklace, a delicate chain with a small pendant. When Nia looked closer, she realized it was a miniature version of Jun-young's dragon tattoo, rendered in diamonds and sapphires. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It's a reminder," Jun-young said, fastening it around her neck, "that you saved the dragon, that you tamed him, that you're the reason he gets to be human instead of monster. You were never a monster. I was becoming one, until you pulled me from that water and reminded me that some things are worth living for." He turned her to face him, eyes intense. "I love you, Nia Lee. Every day I love you more than the day before. I love you too, my dangerous, reformed, impossible husband." They kissed while Ji-young made exaggerated gagging sounds, and Nia thought about that night at the reservoir, about the split-second decision to dive in instead of driving past, about how one moment of courage had led to all of this. People always said you shouldn't jump into freezing water to save strangers, that you should wait for professionals, that you could die trying to help someone you didn't know. But Nia had never been good at following rules. She'd seen someone drowning and hadn't hesitated, had pulled a 200-pound man from a sinking car and breathed life back into his lungs, had dragged him to shore and given him a second chance. And in return, he'd given her everything. A love she'd never imagined, a life beyond her wildest dreams, a family that defied every expectation. "Mama, Papa, Worm," Ji-young announced, having found another victim. Jun-young sighed. "She definitely gets this from you. The fearlessness or the love of worms? Both. Definitely both." They chased their daughter around the yard, playing and laughing, living the beautifully ordinary life they'd fought so hard to build. And somewhere in the house, in a frame on the mantel, hung a newspaper clipping from that night. Local woman saves drowning man from reservoir. The article had no idea who Junyoung was, what he'd become to her, how that one act of bravery had changed everything. It was just a feel-good story about a good Samaritan who'd risked her life for a stranger. But Nia knew the truth, knew that she hadn't just saved a stranger's life that night, she saved her own future, had pulled her soulmate from death, and in doing so, had found the love she'd been searching for without knowing it. And years later, when Ji Young was old enough to understand, Nia would tell her the story about the night her mother dove into freezing water to save a man she'd never met, about how that man became her father, and how one moment of courage could change everything. "Come on," Junyoung called, scooping up both Nia and Ji Young in his strong arms. "Let's go inside."